Good morning, British Columbia. Sometimes you look around the province and you realize the place is really going to the dogs. I'm not going to bore you with this stadium mangled nonsense this morning, although I've seldom seen anything so confused or badly handled or mishandled by politicians on such a simple thing in a long time. Later in the week, I'll be nagging with Premier Bennett on the lackluster performance of his social credit government. And where the NDP is now, nobody knows. I think they've gone into temporary retirement for the moment. But I am going to deal with dogs this morning. But before we get to the dogs, I want you to look, in case you ever finish up there, and the way we send people to jail, you could, in the new, a look at the new $17.5 million maximum security prison up at Kent. It's just beside Mountain Prison, Agassiz. They're growing in clumps throughout the province. But you know, you lose your liberty, but the food is still quite good. Coxford was out there.
What's on for tomorrow night's supper, Ted?
Okay. There'll be the tomato soup from lunch, baked Virginia ham, pineapple sauce, mashed potatoes, cream-style corn. Salad bar as per usual, laid out, and then we'll get Ashton to whip up a chocolate cake for the dessert, okay?
Brian Coxford does his walkabout there. And he also did a trotabout on Salt Spring Island, where in the last few years 500 or 600 sheep have been slaughtered by those lovely little darling domestic dogs. It's a real problem, and we discovered that somebody mysteriously took away a sheep farmer's right to shoot dogs. He's supposed to catch it while he's killing the dogs, tie it up and say, nice doggy, and we're going to deal with that this morning too.
Yeah, here's another one I wanted you guys to see.
What's that bring the count up to now, Merv?
Well, that's 15 in the last, less than 2 weeks.
I think it starts out as a sport and progresses from there. They'll hit 20, 30 in a night.
If I can find it, I'll shoot it. I mean, I have to protect myself. But if I don't find it, it's just, I take the loss.
But if he does shoot it under this incredible regional district bylaw, he, Merv Walde, the farmer you saw just now, could be in real trouble. What else are we going to do this morning? We're going to do a free-for-all. We're going to meet a strange character from Atlin who wants to talk about one thing, but I ain't going to talk about that. You'll meet him later. First, though, the problem of the killer sheepdogs on Salt Spring Island and elsewhere throughout British Columbia. There's not much point in being a sheep farmer these days in British Columbia, with coyotes and dogs in the Fraser Valley and dogs and the occasional cougar on Salt Spring Island. It is a problem. It affects the price of lamb, I'll tell you that much. Brian Coxford went over to Salt Spring, wonder why he went there, and did this story on killer dogs.
This story tells about a conflict between two kinds of domestic animals. One is sheep. There are 2,500 head on Salt Spring Island, the first farm animal to be brought here. And this is man's best friend, a popular household pet. If you ask a sheep herder, he'll tell you that basically sheep are a docile, stupid animal. They only move or run when they're intimidated or scared. And here on Salt Spring Island, there's a major problem. About 500 dogs, only about 30% of them licensed, and a large number of them running loose. They move in packs at night, and they're attacking the sheep. They bite the backs of their legs and leave them to die. About 600 have been killed in this manner over the past 5 years, and dozens in just the past 2 weeks.
Now, this poor old girl here has been chewed up really quite severely. What happens is dogs go on to chase them, and this dog apparently was one that goes after back legs. It tried to hamstring this one. You see the hole. We're treating it with penicillin and trying to keep it from getting too infected, but when I first found her, she couldn't even walk.
That's Merv Walde on his 250-acre farm. 2 weeks ago, his flock numbered 60. Since then, dogs have killed 15 of his sheep. Pat Ackerman and his brother Ted, whose 400-acre spread is home for 700 head, have been more fortunate. The death toll on their farm in the last month has been 9. It was Ackerman's ancestors who first settled and brought the first sheep to the island. These men and so many other sheep farmers are forced to carry guns to protect the flock.
Most of the kills happen at night. You know, the people will say, well, oh, Fido, he's been laying on the porch here all the time. Well, he lays home all day long because he's damn tired. He's been running all night. I think it starts out as a sport and progresses from there. They'll hit 20, 30 in a night, no problem.
A lot of dog owners would say that you guys are overreacting.
Oh, I think people would say we were overreacting, but these people, they're not around at lambing time. They don't understand the damage that a dog can do, not only killing the sheep, but if a dog runs sheep and the ewes live a month or so before lambing, you have a lot of breech bursts, twisted lambs, you lose your mother or lose the lamb. They don't see all these things.
The man at the center of this dog-sheep conflict in the Capital Regional District is the Dog Control Officer, Bill Leach. He's the one that's charged with the task of trying to solve an epidemic dog problem. He's not after the responsible owner who controls his dog, but the owner who lets his animal run at will for a hostile encounter with a sheep herder. Are you sympathetic with sheep farmers?
Yes,
They really do have a problem,
they do.
and they're losing great numbers.
Well, I understand that the losses 2 or 3 years ago were extremely serious, and that last year, you know, it wasn't too bad, and then we've regrettably had a rash of killings in the last few months, not only here, but down in Souk and in the Machosen area.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming over, Bill.
Well, that's fine, Merv. I came as soon as I could to see if I could be helpful.
And that's all a sheep
well,
farmer
it's
is
sort of
supposed to do these days, is call out the animal control officer. Because a bylaw enacted May 1st by the regional district says it's now against the law for a farmer to do anything else. He used to be able to shoot the dogs. It's little comfort to a farmer who's lost 15 sheep in less than 2 weeks.
I don't know what the answer is to this.
Well, I think one answer may be, and hopefully it'll have a beneficial effect, but we will have an assistant animal control officer right on the island.
Yeah, well, you told me that earlier, but it still doesn't really help me very much.
Yeah.
When I wake up in the morning, look out my window, and I see, you know, a dog in the middle of my sheep.
When a stray dog runs through his field, how do you convince a sheep herder that he doesn't have to take the law into his own hands to protect his flock, especially when the Capital Region dog bylaw discriminates against him in 3 areas? First, it's left up to the provincial judge to decide if the dog has killed or injured his sheep. Only then can the dog be ordered destroyed. Secondly, when a dog kills a farmer's sheep, compensation paid him is only 75% of the gate value, nowhere near the market value. And the third area of discrimination, first offense dog fines for unlicensed dogs running loose, $10. Not much of a deterrent to keep a potentially killer dog tied up. But the regional district is promising to amend the bylaw when the politicians find the time to get the act in order. Farmers will regain the right to bear arms to protect their flock, but the compensation paid for sheep kills and the minimal fines paid by irresponsible dog owners will not change. This new bylaw change or the amendment just going to be a short-term solution to a long-term problem?
Well, as one sheep farmer said to me, he said, I could shoot dogs that slam blue in the face, and that isn't going to solve the problem. I mean, that's the, you know, it's a short-term solution and perhaps not the best one. I feel that the long-term solution has to be to impress on dog owners that they have responsibilities. And in particular, where you have an area like Salt Spring, where there are quite a few new subdivisions and where people are moving in from the cities, and they don't understand that their dogs just cannot run at large, and in particular can't be running near sheep.
On sheep! On sheep! On sheep!
Since the Capital Region's taken over, we're not even allowed to shoot the goddamn dog that comes on the place. You know, if I look out here in a field and I see dogs chasing my sheep, legally I'm not supposed to shoot them. I've got no means. The only thing I can do is phone Victoria. And hopefully within 2 or 3 hours the guy may be able to make it over, but it still doesn't solve the problem. I mean, at that time they're dead. I paid $140 for this summer. 3 of them I lost in this last kill. I'll be lucky if I see. I don't even know what the compensation. They don't even know what the compensation is for it. So.
What happens to the dog? They usually strike at night, don't they?
At night or early in the morning. Yeah.
And what happens to the dog?
What happens to the dog?
Nothing. Eh?
Nothing unless I find it. If I can find it, I'll shoot it. I mean, I have to. I have to protect myself. But if I don't find it, it's just I take the loss.
There are about 2,500 head of sheep on Salt Spring Island, and a dozen full-time and some part-time sheep farmers. As is the case with any range animal, it's impossible for them to watch over the flock on a continuous basis. 600 of the docile creatures have been run down by dogs and left to die in the last 5 years. And the only memorial to their deaths, turkey buzzards who wait to pick up the pieces.
Now, here's another one I wanted you guys to see.
What's that bring the count up to now, Merv?
Well, that's 15 in the last, less than 2 weeks.
It's going to take more than an amendment to a bylaw to stop the needless and tragic slaughter of these helpless animals. Because as long as the dogs run loose, sheep will run in terror and farmers will have to protect them.
It is, as Brian said a moment ago, going to take more than a bylaw to protect the sheep from dogs, but you would wonder, in all quiet sanity, and Brian and I are going to talk about it in a minute, how anyone could pass a bylaw which said that if you are a sheep farmer and there is a killer dog attacking your flock, first catch the dog, then phone the sheep control officer, then impound it, and then get a judge to decide whether or not that poor lovely little innocent domestic dog actually killed the sheep. How did it get by the capital regional district? See if you want to talk about this morning, and I'm going to discuss it with Brian too, before we get down to our other business, after this commercial break. I've lost a few sheep myself over the years, and there's nothing more miserable, bad enough trouble with the ravens over there, which will attack any lamb, any ewe that's giving birth while she's down. I've seen the ravens rip their ears out and go for their tummies and their eyes, but they're protected too, of course. But you want to see the mess that 1 or 2 small, tiny domestic dogs can do to lambs. Rip them up and down, rip their skin open, and then leave them staggering about bleeding to death. However, not to be maudlin about the thing, it's a question of practical proposition. Honest, I didn't know about this bylaw until just before you went over to Salt Spring Island. I was under, like everybody else who runs sheep, under the clear impression that under a federal statute, Animal Protection Act or something, federal or provincial, you could shoot dogs that were attacking sheep or deer.
That's what all the farmers over there thought too. There was no input from them, and the dog control officer who just came on stream in first part of May, he wasn't consulted about it either. So it was just your elected officials who took it upon themselves to produce this law, and they found out about it, the farmers did, by just asking for the bylaw, reading it themselves, and finding out that they've been breaking the law.
They kept it secret by accident, perhaps. However, does this bylaw, all this bylaw says that a dog which attacks or viciously pursues a person, what about sheep though, shall be subject to the impoundment provisions of this bylaw, or is likely to kill or injure a person or a domestic animal.
Domestic animal. Huh?
Yeah, they've got domestic animal in as a second thought, you would think, in the bylaw.
But as the bylaw reads, a judge has to decide whether that dog has actually, injured the sheep.
Now, are they planning to change this bylaw?
The new bylaw, which perhaps, I guess at the outside 30 days, should be changed anyway, is going to read that where a person finds a dog running at large and attacking, viciously pursuing a person or a domestic animal, he may kill that dog. But he's got to put it in writing within 2 days to the domestic animal control officer that he had killed the dog.
So really what we're doing here is exposing 2 things. One, the danger of domestic dogs running at large. The place used to be full of hippie dogs. You don't see so many hippie dogs now. And secondly, you can now, after they amend this bylaw, if they don't mess around anymore.
Whenever they get around to it.
When they get around to it, the farmer may kill the dog and then must support a letter in writing to the domestic animal control officer.
There's one thing we should remember here. I've yet to find a dog that knew what the law was.
Most of them can't read terribly well. Then, of course, did you not say that Walde, Merv and Walde, has to phone at the moment the animal control officer in Victoria to come over to the island?
Yeah. That, part of that problem is going to be remedied. There's going to be some assistant animal control officers coming on stream. And as a matter of fact, in the next couple of days.
Where, in Salt Spring?
One in Salt Spring, one in Pender Island, and one in Sook. And the telephone numbers, we should maybe just read those out.
Have you got them on before?
They should be there. Salt Spring Island is a fellow by the name of Gavin Reynolds. And
just give the names. Salt Spring, Gavin Reynolds, Pender Island, Chris Wade. People can look up the numbers. And Sook, David O'Flynn.
And they're on a part-time basis, but from what I understand, you can pretty well call them anytime and get them out there.
Yeah.
But again, it's still...
as of this moment, you can only say, as we said on the little tag, here doggy, stop killing my sheep, doggy, nice doggy.
Get on the phone, call the animal control officer, impound the dog, then go to a judge.
You'd wonder who wrote that bylaw.
And call witnesses.
Oh, yeah, of course, you've got to witnesses to convince the judge. Leave the blood on the face of the dog. Really, it's quite comical. However, I'm glad that the Capital Regional District must get a little credit. They have responded, I think, to the Salt Spring Farmers Institute and other people who expressed their amazement at this particular bylaw. And within 30 days, we must watch for that. In case they lose it in the bottom of the pile of papers again.
We should point out, too, that the animal control people, the officials that we saw, Bill Leach and
the
other ones, are helpful and entirely sympathetic with farmers.
Any calls on this, Linda? Who's on this line? Hello, Fred. Yeah. What's your name and title again, Fred?
It's Fred Glassberg, and I'm the president of the Lower Mainland Sheep Producers Association.
Sheep Producers Association. Does that mean you're a sheep farmer?
Oh, I'm a sheep farmer, too.
Well, how does
We've had, I fully sympathize with the problems in Salt Spring Island, and it just doesn't happen there. It happens here in the Fraser Valley just as much.
How do you stand about shooting a dog which is in the act of attacking or killing livestock?
Well, as most bylaws in the municipalities here, have a no-gun bylaw, but farmers are exempt from this for protecting their livestock.
So you feel quite free. You don't have a similar bylaw which prevents at the moment in Salt Spring Island a farmer shooting a dog?
No, we don't have a similar bylaw as that. I think any sheep farmer that is serious about raising sheep, a rifle is almost a prerequisite.
You're not supposed to use a rifle in the boundaries of a municipality, are you?
We're within the boundaries of the municipality.
Can you use a rifle, or must it be a shotgun?
It's supposed to be a shotgun.
Well, a shotgun isn't practical, is it?
Not very well, no.
Well, anyway, I'm glad we haven't got any dog lovers bothering us this morning. It's not a question of being a dog lover or not being a dog lover. It's a question of the fact that dog lovers must love their dogs enough to keep them under control so they don't kill sheep. Would you agree with me, Fred?
Our statistics have shown last year that in the Lower Mainland we lost about 150 sheep to dogs, just to dogs alone. And another 50 or so injured, and one lamb requiring 60 stitches to bring back its wounds.
What about coyotes?
Coyotes are just as much of a problem. This is half of our problem is dogs. Coyotes are the other half, and we lost well over 100 sheep to coyotes last year. And
Fred, will you keep me in touch?
Sure will.
Much obliged. With that, Prince George, go ahead, please, to Coxford and Webster.
I think that's a stupid law, and I think that all the people in Salt Spring Island should keep their dogs tied up, because I have two big dogs, and I think it would cost me a lot more than $10 to get them out of the pound.
What are the fines in Salt Spring Island or the Capital Regional District under the bylaw, Brian? You've got that information somewhere.
Okay, first of all, you don't have to license your dog for 30 days, so it can run wild, whatever you want to do it for 30 days. Then if there's a first offense, $10 fine, $20 fine for second offense, and $35, and then $85 for the fourth.
That's just for running at large.
Running at large without a license.
Oh, I see. Nothing to do with the sheep or whatnot.
No.
What do you do up in, where do you, Prince George? Do you have the problem there?
Well, there's no problem. I don't have any sheep, but I'm a dog lover, but I still think that they should be allowed to kill the dogs.
Here. I'm a dog lover too, but obviously you're going to have to kill the dog if it's attacking sheep.
Right.
It's just a dog, though, not the owner. It's just a dog. Vanderhoof.
Hello.
Yeah.
Jack, you raise sheep, don't you?
Few.
Are you familiar with guard dogs? I'm not talking about shepherds like German shepherds or collies.
Yeah, I've seen guard dogs, sure.
Well, there was an appropriate article in the last issue of Harold Smith Magazine, issue 21, and I'd just like to give you the address of this center where they're working with guard dogs. I'm against this law. You know, I think it's crazy, but as you pointed out, the dogs can't read the law.
You're suggesting that guard dogs could guard your sheep against dogs?
Well, it seems that there are 6 breeds that are inherently protected of sheep if they're brought up with the flock.
The best one is a Hungarian dog called a Commandor.
That's right, the
Which is a
Commodore,
sheep
and then
protection
there's a
dog.
Kuvas,
Yeah.
Great Pyrenees.
The only trouble is a Commandor would eat you out of house and home.
You would, huh?
Beautiful dogs. I had one once, but it was too big and we couldn't keep it. I always regret that we didn't keep it.
Did you
It was
use
actually
to
bred.
guard your sheep?
It was bred in Central Europe for protecting flocks against bears. The Commandor.
Yes, well, there's a project.
I'm a great follower of Harold Smith myself, and I'll look up that article, but I don't want to bore everybody else to death. Go ahead, please.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Is that Jack?
Yep.
Simple answer.
What's that?
I'm a dog lover.
Mm-hmm.
I have a beautiful German Shepherd.
Oh.
If I was a sheep farmer, I'd shoot the dog, I'd bury it, and I'd stop it. It's not fair.
You wouldn't bother to report it to the animal protection officer, would you?
No, I would not, because these people who've
You
put
would
this
quietly
bylaw
shoot
in,
Mhm.
they wouldn't be saying, I'm putting this bylaw in if they were sheep farmers and losing sheep.
The fact remains that what you suggest probably happens many a place because it's too much trouble to phone the dog control officer, it's too much trouble and too difficult to tell your neighbors you've shot a dog, so I'm sure that in some instances dogs have been shot and quietly buried.
That's my answer to it.
Here, here, much obliged. Ryan, what's next? You've been doing the work this week after I was indisposed for a couple of days there.
We're going to take a look at the newest steel and bars out at Kent Prison in Agassiz, the prison that largely is going to replace, at least with most of the inmates,
the BC Penitentiary.
with the exception of about 100.
With Brian Brian Coxford. Don't let's start that again this year. After this break.
The barbed wire and the hardware that comes with a maximum security prison has been in place near Agassiz for months. But the gates only opened August 15th, and it's been a slow growth policy ever since, with new tenants trickling in at a very slow rate, with the staff here making sure they are ready for the inmates before there are too many of them to handle. It's an institution made of brick, mortar, and steel that cost a lot of money, $17.5 million, and it will cost about $30,000 a year per inmate to keep Kent Maximum Security Pen in operation once it's full. That's about $3,000 more than the national average. Jack, we're in the Kent courtyard area. This is going to be an activity area where the inmates will go back and forth to the various programs and courses that will be underway once there's an entire population here at Kent Prison. There's only about 48 inmates here now. They're coming at a rate of about 6 each week, all of them from the BC Pen. The ones that are here now are in 2 of the live-in areas down here. They look onto the courtyard. There's 6 other live-in units around, and once this prison is entirely populated, 192 inmates. That's almost all of the inmates from the BC Pen. Who are the inmates that you've got here at Kent Prison?
They're transfers from British Columbia Penitentiary from the normal association group at the pen.
And will that include almost everybody at the pen?
No, the protective custody inmates at the pen will not be transferred here, nor will the people who are now housed in the super maximum unit.
So you're not going to have any of the heavy cons like the Andy Bruces?
That is not the present intention.
Security is the name of the game here. The view from the tower looks down on 2 chain-link fences topped with barbed wire. And should an inmate penetrate that, there's a constant 24-hour perimeter patrol. Inside, there's steel and more steel, and no 2 doors can open at once. The prison cells are in lots of 24 in each living unit. There are 8. And unlike the BC Pen, the former home of the inmates here, they won't be able to look out the doors and stir up trouble among themselves. And there's an extra secure living unit with more steel just to assure any troublemakers are kept under close guard.
In line with security then, taking this institution and keeping in mind that you've got BC Penn inmates here, how do you prevent another situation that everybody knows about, BC Penn riots?
Well, the size of the unit, for one thing. The living units themselves are divisible into subunits of 12, so that the most inmates really at any one time inside the living unit that can really cause you trouble would be either 12 or 24. And we think on that basis that if there was any difficulty that started, we'd have a real good chance of slowing it down before it really got out of hand.
Each living unit has one plainclothes staff member inside with the inmates, but he's in his own locked setting. And the uniform guard in the unit is situated in a bubble-like control area. There are locked doors between him and the inmates. He controls the machinery within the unit and enters and exits using a private doorway.
You were director at Millhaven.
Yes.
You served there 3 years, I believe.
That's right.
And over a course of the 8-year history of that prison, there's been, I believe, 7 directors?
Yes.
Yours was the longest term?
That's correct.
You were there at a time also when there was riots, the likes of which we had at the BC Pen.
Well, there was a riot at Millhaven in October '76, which was smaller than the Pen or at Laval.
If there is a supermax in the country, it is Millhaven. And do you see that kind of security applying here?
No, it's a totally different type of population here. Apart from being a smaller institution, Millhaven had about 400-odd inmates, and the maximum here will be 192. There was a greater mixture of inmates, for example, inmates in a special handling unit, a large number of protection inmates and segregation inmates, so that that kind of population division won't occur here, at least we don't believe it will.
Because we don't have the likes of the supermax
That's correct.
type of client that caused all the troubles at the Pen.
That's right.
Yes. Drugs, a problem at most institutions. How do you keep it out?
Well, we hope that by the security measures that we have here, which are the same as at most other institutions, that we can eliminate this, but they still seem to come in. I haven't noticed any here yet, but I'm sure we're going to have our troubles in that regard.
All around that security are certain amenities: 2 tennis courts, a volleyball court, and 2 playing fields for the inmates to use for about 3 hours each night, a modern gym, weight room, and music room. The prison clinic is the most modern and best equipped of any in the system. The nurse is in an isolated area, away from the inmates. The controls to each hospital room door are behind a locked barrier. There's 2 types of visiting areas: the open lounge style, where inmates have earned the right to have mixed visits with family and friends. For the bad guys, it's a phone call and a view through unbreakable glass. Those are the facilities that are ready now for the influx of inmates. But the chapel, meeting rooms, and library are not being used, and there are visible signs that the prison still isn't functioning as it eventually will, and a modern industrial shop hasn't been pressed into full service.
The work ethic is the principle on which this institution was built.
You mean you're actually going to have the inmates participate in some sort of work program?
That's the plan in the institution. We have a large industrial complex, as well as we will offer them an academic program, and all of the maintenance in the institution will be done by inmates under the supervision of technicians.
You have almost an element of trust here among the inmates.
Well, the inmate, of course, has to earn the trust, and determined in part by his responses to programs and communication with the staff. If he doesn't communicate, then we're not able to try to measure just how far we can go with him in allowing him greater privileges in the institution.
If he's not prepared to work or take a course or of some kind in here, what can he expect?
What can he expect? Well, somewhat more restricted day program, we hope we don't have too many like that.
The story given by prison officials isn't totally echoed by the few inmates who have been transferred here. Some have been at Kent for a month and complain that there's very little for them to do, not enough trust, and too much security administered by some of the same people who are at the BC Pen.
If they're able to meet us halfway, let's say, you know, as I said, we all know that we are in prison because we've broken the laws of our society and this and that, and we don't argue that, you know. What we are arguing is what we've gone through before in BC Pen, you know what I mean? Because there wasn't no LU or living unit concept. It was just all guards.
You like that better, though, eh?
Well, if it's given a chance, yes, to operate, it can benefit everyone, you understand? You know, there can be positive benefits, let's say, but, you know, keeping in mind, you know, secondly, that we are inmates, but first of all, that we are human beings.
Ironically, we were told later it was the same inmate who allegedly thumped out his comrade in front of all the other prisoners just an hour before this interview, and an hour after he was tossed into the hole, one of 4 isolation units at Kent. But his thoughts were also echoed by a fellow inmate.
Well, first of all, this place, like I said earlier, it's
more livable, eh?
Well, in certain ways. It's clean, it's neat, it's new and everything. But right now we get less freedom here than we had in the BC Pen. You know, everything is restricted. To go there, you got to go through doors, 15 doors to go to one place. You're frisked 3 or 4 times a day.
But again, we go back to the question, I mean, and you admitted right off the top, you are inmates.
Oh, no doubt, we are. But still, being inmate don't take all your rights away or whatever, right?
It's 3 hot meals a day at the cafeteria. Some sort of beef or steak served up daily in a modern, totally equipped kitchen. And although the meals are institutionalized, the food here is probably better than most people cook up at home.
What's on for tomorrow night's supper, Ted?
Okay. There'll be the tomato soup from lunch, baked Virginia ham, pineapple sauce, mashed potatoes, cream-style corn. Salad bar as per usual, laid out, and they will get Ashton to whip up a chocolate cake for the dessert, okay? I'll put that right there.
Director John Dowsett knows what happened at Millhaven Penitentiary when it was forced into service before it was ready, and the riots and trouble that followed. So he's determined that Kent will be phased in slowly, no more than 6 inmates added each week. But Kent is a maximum security prison made of bricks and steel, and like any other jail, inmates are locked up and their attitude's the same. Whether Kent proves to be any better than the rest, time may tell.
30,000 an inmate. Can't avoid it, I don't suppose, anymore. If the living unit concept works out there, I think it might be a big success. Anything that can kind of downgrade and get rid of the BC Penitentiary as soon as possible has got to be a step in the right direction. And money doesn't matter anymore when it comes to things. We still, of course, send far too many people to jail in this country. Keep the violent ones in, let the non-violent ones out. We still don't adopt that policy. However, we're going to have a free-for-all later this morning, but occasionally I have real people, not city slickers like us. That's us down here, not you out there. And this morning I've got a real people, and his name is Bruce Johnson, isn't it?
Right.
Glad you put on your collar to dress up to come down for the show. And I'll tell you about Bruce after the break. Quite interesting this morning. Bruce Johnson is with me in the studio, and he came down from his lush apartment-style living somewhere up near Atlin, British Columbia. And what do you want to talk about with me this morning, having come all the way down from Atlin, British Columbia, way up in the far corner, hop, skip, and a jump from Hogan City, Whitehorse?
Well, Atlin's undergoing a lot of changes right now. Atlin's basically a small town in the wilderness, and all of a sudden, there are all kinds of issues of the outside world hitting Atlin, and the people are confused and wondering what's going on.
You didn't answer my question. I thought you were a real frontier boy, and he'd come on with a political speech before when I asked you to open your mouth. What do you want to talk about?
I want to talk about dogs. I race dogs.
That's good. I thought you were going to say you wanted to talk about uranium mining.
I don't really want to talk about uranium mining. It's just something that's there and has to be talked about.
You don't want any uranium mining up there?
No, I want to race dogs.
You don't want anything up there except the wilderness?
That's right. I'm a wilderness outfitter, and I sell the wilderness and take people to enjoy the wilderness.
And does the government give you a license to do this?
No, a license is for hunting. I don't hunt. We take pictures, not the horns.
You're an outfitter?
Right.
Tell me about yourself, Bruce. How old are you?
32.
32. Where are you from originally?
Well, Fairbanks and Montana.
And when did you come into Canada?
10 years ago.
Citizen now?
Right.
And where in fact do you live?
We live 7 miles across Atlin Lake from the town of Atlin on the Atlin River, which is the headwaters of the Yukon River.
Show me a picture in your real habitat. Is that you in your habitat?
That's a racing picture in Whitehorse, Yukon. That's a team of 12 sled dogs racing. And it's from last winter.
Another picture. See how my eyes go up to watch the monitor?
Yeah.
Just so we get a flavor of you. Another picture. What's
this
that?
is a spring trip where I'm taking tourists down the lake. We take about a 7-day trip, and I teach them how to cross-country ski and run a team of sled dogs.
We're talking about dogs eating sheep. Is there any chance of your dogs eating tourists?
No, my dogs are friendly. I have a daughter 7 years old and one 17. And if a dog even nips one of the kids, they're gone. Actually, sled dogs are better cared for than almost all pets.
What kind of dogs are your sled dogs?
They're Alaska Huskies bred with labs. I've been doing my own breeding for...
Crossbred husky and labs?
Right.
You don't have any sheep up there to bother about?
There's no sheep, but if they were running loose, they'd be chasing moose probably.
Well,
mine are tied up all the time, and I know where they are.
All right, now tell me about it. When did you just set up a camp in the woods and build a house 7 miles out of Atlin across the lake?
Right, it's on the old railroad. It used to be the shortest railroad in the world between Tagish Lake and Atlin Lake, where the people came in during the gold rush.
How short is the shortest railroad in the world, or was it?
2 miles, 1,000 feet.
Between where?
Tagish Lake and Atlin Lake.
And that was on the route to which gold rush?
To the Atlin gold fields.
Oh, not the Klondike, no.
No,
way south of the Klondike.
It was an offshoot of the Klondike, yeah.
When was that strike?
98.
That was 98 too?
98 and 99 when the railroad was being built, the Atlin strike.
I'd like to see some more. Have you any slides of these dogs? I like dogs, you know, despite what we did off the top of the program this morning. What's that?
This is a team of dogs in the Northwest Territories. I had to run them single file because I had a narrow snowshoe trail and the dogs couldn't stay on unless I had them single file. Normally you run 2 abreast.
I thought you ran them fan-shaped in the old Mountie pictures.
No, that's in the Arctic.
That's in the Arctic?
Right,
You
in
ran
the open.
How many dogs in a team?
Anywhere from 7 to 16. Oh, here there's 5. When I'm working hauling wood or hauling water, I only use 1 or 2. Otherwise, I spill the water and it freezes all over your feet.
In other words, you use your dogs as work dogs as well as tourist dogs.
Right, they're companions as well as they're a racing sled dog now is a super athlete, and it's probably better cared for than a lot of people. It's not just you know, something that's hanging on a chain out there.
What do you feed them on?
Well, I feed them commercial food in the summer, and then I supplement it in the winter. Liver, horse meat, all kinds of secret formulas.
You give them Dr. Ballard's? Is that the kind of stuff you give them?
Right, commercial dry food we give them.
Oh, dry food.
Yeah.
Don't open cans of
Don't
dog
open 40 cans.
Tell me about your tourist operation. What do you actually do there for the tourists, and what's your season up there?
Well, in the summer we have canoe and hiking trips, and we do some small climbs near the glacier.
Do you have any summer up there?
We didn't have much of a summer this year.
How long does
it's
the
when
summer...
the ice wasn't. Summer's when there's no ice on the lake.
When is there no ice in the
June,
lake?
from June to December, there's no ice on the lake.
That's not bad, but of course it's only summer, June and July.
Right, and after this time of year, it's pretty cold to travel on the lake.
Right now, so you can travel on the lake for a good 6 months of the year.
Yeah, if you're brave enough.
Well, how many times have you been through the ice?
I've only been through the ice once.
Once?
With a team of dogs.
You obviously managed to get out again.
Yeah, right. I'm not going in again.
You're not going in again. Okay, what do you charge the tourists?
In the summer for the hiking and canoe trips, it's $75 a day, and in the winter, it's $125 a day.
What do I get for my $75?
You get good home-baked bread and homegrown food from the garden, and instruction and equipment for Any kind of trip you want. If you want to take pictures of moose, we'll spend all day looking for moose. If you want to climb a mountain, we'll climb a mountain.
You don't climb a mountain with dogs, though?
Actually, some people climbed Mount McKinley with dogs last spring for the first time.
But you use them, and the tourists come into Atlin, and you go pick them up in Atlin?
I pick them up at the Whitehorse Airport and bring them to Atlin.
By four-wheel drive?
No, with the truck, just to town.
You've got Blacktop Road there, haven't you?
No, it's gravel. Gravel.
So what, 100 miles from Whitehorse to Atlin?
110 miles.
110 miles.
Yeah.
What kind of accommodation have you got?
We've got log cabins that I built, and then we stay in some trappers' cabins on our 5-day trip.
You go on a 5-day trip, $75 a day per head?
Well, in the winter, it's $125 a day.
I'm looking for the cheap trip.
Well, you have to be able to take care of the people, so I only take a small party, 4 or 5 people.
Make a good living at it.
Well, it's a fair living combined with racing dogs. This winter, I'm going in the Iditarod race from Anchorage to Nome.
Which race?
Iditarod trail race.
Iditarod?
Yeah, it's 1,049 miles from Anchorage to Nome.
Were you in it last year?
No. There have only been 2 Canadians enter and only 1 finish, so this year I want to go and...
You're going in as a Canadian this year to race on the Iditarod?
Right.
From Anchorage to Nome?
Right.
1,049 miles?
Yeah.
How long will it take you?
Anywhere from 14 to 24 days.
Depending on the weather?
Depending on the weather and the trail conditions
How
and
many
the conditions
dogs?
of your dogs. I'll start with 16.
What weight will your sled be?
Oh, I'll have probably 200 pounds of dog food and a bit of gear. You don't even bother taking a tent. You just sleep in your sleeping bag and get up and run again.
You look remarkably healthy to me.
Yeah, I've frozen a few things, frostbit a few things, but they're all still here.
You haven't lost any of your appendages yet?
No, they're still hanging on.
Yeah, and that's, what kind of dogs do you say? They're a cross between Labs and...
Alaskan Huskies.
They're not as good as pure Huskies, though.
There is, pure Huskies are like Siberians.
Yeah.
That's, anytime you register a dog and start breeding for show, you're going to ruin its working qualities, and this is what's happened to Labs, Siberians, Malamutes, Samoyeds. I'm sure you'll get a lot of calls about that.
So you're back now mixing the breed to get a good,
That's
healthy
right.
mongrel
This is
dog.
a native Indian village type of dog.
How heavy a dog?
About 55 pounds.
Not very heavy, is it?
No. But they'll outpull and outrun 150-pound
Tell you what I'm going to do.
dog.
Seeing you came all the way down from Atlin, who told you to come and see me? You don't see us in Atlin, do you? You should do.
They'll...
Do you good?
I don't have a TV.
Well, you don't, of course you don't.
I don't have electricity.
See, I'm a typical, country boy kind of character, but I think everybody's got a TV and electric mix masters and whatnot. Do you have?
Well, almost everybody does.
Do you have hydropower up there?
No, we don't where we live. We live in the bush.
You told me that.
Well, we don't have hydropower.
Oh, fair enough. I'm going to have a free-for-all between now and the end of the program. If you want to talk to Bruce Johnson, what's the name of your settlement?
Atlin.
No, the place where you live. It must have a name.
Atlin River.
Atlin River. Just 7 miles across the lake from Atlin River. You're not got a name on the place.
No, we're the only people that live there. We live on the Atlin River.
Well, let's call it Johnsontown.
All right.
Johnsontown, near Atlin. And Webster. And I'll tackle anything you like this morning. I haven't had a free-for-all since I came back, 2.5 weeks ago. Last 3 days off when I was dodging the column. After this break. I just discovered from Bruce Johnson the real reason he conned his way onto the program this morning. Now tell the real reason.
My wife is starting a newspaper in Atlin. She's calling it the Atlin Rag Times. And she's doing it all herself. She's living in the bush, but she's going to start a newspaper, and she's in Whitehorse printing it up today, I think.
Daily newspaper?
Oh, monthly. Monthly, please.
Monthly newspaper in competition with FP Publications' Western divisions.
Yeah.
Which produces what used to be the locally owned Vancouver Sun.
She'll give them a run for their money.
Atlin Rag Time.
Atlin Rag Times.
Rag Times.
All right.
Oh, that's good.
The upbeat and the downbeat of a small town.
Quite a bright couple. Many kids, you say?
2 kids.
2 kids.
Our oldest went to university last year when she was 16. She had never been to public school, but we taught her at home, and then she went up and passed her entrance exams and took a semester of school.
Which university?
University of Alaska.
At 16? She
At
entered.
16, yeah.
You taught her by correspondence course?
No, we just taught her ourselves.
You both got university degrees?
Right.
What's yours in?
Forestry.
Forestry? Oh, you're not quite as much of a pioneer as you look, are you? You were a city slicker at one time.
No, not really. My father was in forestry, and we lived on a ranger station in the woods.
In Alaska?
In Montana and Idaho.
Montana. And your wife's degree is what?
Oh, in psychology, I guess.
Oh. Hate social workers. What's her first name?
Janelle.
Janelle, if you happen to be in Whitehorse and see this, I understand this program mysteriously appears in Whitehorse by some magnificent mystery of electronics, because we don't beam into Whitehorse. Janelle, best of luck with the Atlin Rag Times. If you need any help, write my old friend Allan Fotheringham, just left the Vancouver Sun. You might get him to do a little shot for you in the Atlin Rag Times. Well, I'm going to say a little thing about Allan later on. Allan's a friend of mine. Sometimes he's not quite sure, but honestly, he is a friend of mine. Foth, we call him, with some measure of affection and occasion. Any phone calls? What are they about? For Bruce? You've used the telephone before. Go ahead to Bruce.
Yes, good morning, both of you. First of all, I was disappointed to hear your guests' views as far as conformation animals, purebred animals, as working animals.
I told you there'd be somebody call about that.
But anyway, that's not why I called. Anyway, I am presently doing some research on a dog that is from the Atlin area. I hope your guest is familiar with it. It's called the Tahltan Bear dog.
Right, yeah, I'm familiar with it.
Just a moment, please. The Tahltan Bear dog.
Right, it's believed to be one of the two dogs that are truly indigenous to Canada, the other being the Eskimo dog. Now, I was just wondering if your guest has any knowledge of them and if he's seen any, because my research so far in the past 6 months has shown only to be about 6 left in existence that I can find.
Are 2 of them in Atlin?
Yeah, well, there's Winnie Atchison and somebody else's, yeah.
Shirley Conley has 1 or 2.
What does it look like?
It's a small dog about this big that supposedly was used to hunt bears. It's a yappy little dog.
Do you know what, just by the way, do you know what I happened to witness this summer? I was up in the Flying 20 in the Princeton Merritt area, and my friend Guy Rose has got an Australian Blue, I think you call it, which is the strangest looking dog you ever saw in your life.
It's just been accepted by the CKC in Canada.
It looks like a dingo.
Yeah, it's part dingo, yeah.
And I watched that dog chase a rather large black bear up a hill.
Yeah?
Quite incredible. Tiny wee dog, can't weigh any more than 15, 16 pounds.
Well, that's a lot like these little Tahltan Bear dogs. They'll chase a grizzly bear.
Hello?
Will they nip it? Okay,
Yeah.
you happy? Have you got a Tahltan dog?
No, there's only about 6 left that I can find in the world, 3 of which are spayed females. The dog is in danger of becoming extinct.
Well, we don't want that.
Yeah, I know. Well, this is why I wanted to talk to your guest about it. I was wondering if perhaps it would be possible to talk to him later after he's doing your show or something.
Give your number to Linda, and he'll give you a call, won't you, Bruce?
By the way, the blue heeler weighs 40 pounds.
Doesn't look like 40 pounds, but it looks like a solid little dog.
They were just accepted by the Canadian Kennel Club this year.
Australian Blue looks like a vicious little thing.
They're very good guard dogs.
Excellent. Must get one for myself. Thank you. Hold on, Linda. I'll talk to you on that one. Vernon, British Columbia. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, good morning, Bruce.
Good morning.
I was just thinking on that 1,000-mile Alaska race, maybe a good idea would be to take that 200 pounds of dog food and 200 pounds of oatmeal and take Webster with you. But that's not the reason I called.
Is he a good lead dog?
You think I couldn't do it? I can do anything I set my mind on.
Hey, on that race, you talked about starting off with 16 dogs. Would they all finish, or would you have any fatalities, or would their feet get hung up, or what happens on
Well,
something like
their feet wear out is one problem. You have to put booties on them if the ice is too crystalline, because they'll wear out the bottoms of their pads.
that? Would you end up with any of the dogs riding on the sled?
You might have some of them riding on the sled. You can drop them off at checkpoints and then fly them back to Anchorage. That's one of the...
What would you finish up with, on a real tough trip out of 16?
Well, I hope to finish with 8 or 10. I have pretty tough dogs.
Yeah.
The minimum is 5. Some people finish with only 5.
What's the prize?
That's very interesting.
The prize is $12,000 if you win, and it costs you about $10,000 to do the race.
So you're 2,000 up.
Yeah, it's not a real money-making operation.
Do you like to meet guys like Johnson on the show now and again, caller?
I sure would. I find that we need more of that, and we also need more television coverage of this type of race for us outdoors type anyway.
When is the race?
The race starts March 1st.
Maybe we'll send Coxford. How long does it take?
20 days or so.
I think he'd chicken out. Thanks anyway.
Thank you.
Shillywhack. Kelowna. Go
Yes.
ahead, please.
Hello. I was calling to say hello to Bruce Johnson. I was up in Atlin myself earlier on this year, and I was wondering why he didn't plug the movie on dog mushing by Doug Sack, some friend of mine who stays up in Atlin.
Oh, I didn't plug a movie because I forgot about it. I'm the main part of the movie. It's a documentary.
Right. That's why I was wondering. I was talking
sled dog.
to him about it, and you know, he was having a bit of trouble making a go of it. And I thought you might be able to use the publicity, so I figured I'd call in and say just that I really enjoyed myself in Atlin. It was one of the most amazingly beautiful places compared to the rather raw tone of Whitehorse. But
Whitehorse is a bit of a pigsty.
Yeah, right.
I'm glad they repealed the drinking law up there because I don't know if it'll make any difference, but
They should ban drinking in Whitehorse altogether.
yeah, the
They should
public.
ban Whitehorse, maybe.
But I also went further up north to Tuktoyaktuk and talked to a fellow named Peter Norberg.
Yeah, Peter's a racer in the more of the central Canada circuit.
He's moved down to Aurelia, but he still keeps his dogs up in Tuktoyaktuk.
Enough of Peter. We've got to get on with some work. Besides, nobody's talking to me this morning. Mine.
Sorry, Jack.
I'm in a snit. Not really, Bruce. Webster, the dog musher, and whatever else you want after this break. Yes, yes. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Webster.
Yes, madam.
Yeah, I was wondering if I could ask Bruce. I want to know what age he quits using his dogs.
Oh, at about 11 years of age.
11 years.
Each dog is an individual and has to be treated as an individual. That's why it's not a simple sport. It's a lot more complex than horse racing, where you're just racing one horse. Here you've got a whole team of dogs, and each has their own personality. Some dogs may burn out at 7 or 8.
Right.
Do you mix them? Do you mix the bitches and the dogs, or do you race dogs only?
No, I mix them. The bitches are a little smarter and make better leaders.
I don't believe it.
That doesn't sound too good. Another thing about your feeding them. What do you feed them in the winter, you said?
I feed them whatever I can get for the most reasonable price, but you're basically trying to get high fat and high protein when you're racing. So that means meat and liver and fat.
Uh-huh. And what do you do for vet care up there?
I just take care of my dogs myself, and my wife helps. We give them stitches, shots, whatever.
That's Janelle, the editor of the Atlin Rag Times.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, Mr. Johnson.
Hello.
Yeah, I've been up through that area prospecting now and then, and I just wanted to know what your views were on the problems with uranium and that's going around there.
Forget that. What about the gold? Do you do any for gold?
Yeah, I've worked on placer mining. Placer mining was the mainstay of Atlin, and tourism is now becoming the other industry.
Have you got any claims up there?
Oh, yeah.
You have?
Sure.
You worked them?
Yeah.
Hydraulic or what?
No, hydraulic has been outlawed now because of the amount of silt in the stream.
You just work it with a sieve and a bucket kind of thing?
Sluice box.
Sluice
yeah.
box?
Yeah.
How much did you make this year in gold?
Nothing. No.
You know what they tell me anyway?
No.
Eh?
Well, that's basically what I wanted to ask is just what you thought of some of the areas that have been devastated, or not devastated, but kind of mucked up, and what plans they had for curtailing some of that.
I don't really know about...
Just a minute, caused by what?
He's talking about the placer mining. I think that now settling ponds are required below your sluice box, and as far as the reclamation of those old dredge piles that you're talking about, or dragline piles, I don't think anything's planned.
Yeah, it's pretty wicked up there in places.
Is it ugly?
I mean, there in one valley bottom in Pine Creek, there's a lot of piles of tailings. That's probably what he's talking about.
But that was done, what, 50, 60, 80 years ago?
That was done 70 or 80 years ago, yeah.
Did it with drag lines and hydraulic pressure, didn't it?
That's right. Yeah.
I've seen the big hole at Likely. Remember the big one at Likely, caller?
I've seen the hole that you're talking about is not all that big anymore.
Oh, 20 years ago since I saw it with Evans Atkinson, I think it was.
It collapsed in.
Did it? Okay, okay, much obliged. Thank you very much. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Mr. Webster, and to your guest. We're talking about... Hello?
That's it, that's you.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Webster, and your guest.
Mm-hmm.
I hope this is me.
That's you.
Yes, I like dogs. I was born and raised in northern Ontario, and we use sleigh dogs there about 6 months of the year, and especially to go to school. And oddly enough, right after the Korean War, I came across, it was a Siberian Husky. And believe it or not, he was a canine dog.
What's a canine
and,
dog?
I had him for quite a while. Well, I had him until he died when he was about 17 years old.
Tell me this, you don't use any, do you use a snowmobile up in your place?
No, I don't have one myself.
But
some people have them.
Would you ban them forever? Except for...
No, because they're a good tool. If they're used as a tool, usually they're used as a toy. But as a work machine, they do serve a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
It's the driver, not the machine.
I suppose so. Much obliged. Glad about you. Where's that from? Courtney, BC. Full of sled dogs over there. Go ahead, please.
Courtney?
Yeah.
Kath Kirk.
Yeah.
Kath Kirk.
Yeah?
I would speak to Mr. Johnson.
Well, speak to him, please, ma'am. We haven't got all day.
Okay, I collect dolls and then pass them on for the city of Courtney to see them.
Dolls?
I wondered if Atlin would have any dolls. They would be the most furthest north. And if so, could you send me one?
Would you please send her a doll from Atlin?
I'll see if I can
Kirk
find
at
a doll.
Courtney.
Okay.
Get Janelle to run a contest in the Atlin Rag Times. For
My address?
No, never mind. Pat Kirk Courtney will get you, I'm sure. Where's this from? Courtney again?
Courtney, yes.
I don't believe it.
Yes, there's two of us here. Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson.
You want a doll?
I'd just like to say that I'm really glad to hear somebody that has a lot of respect for a working dog as such. And I echo his comments on the importance of working dogs as opposed to conformity. I think that probably the characteristics that are attempted to be bred into dogs for show are based on, in many cases, working ability, but then some kind of other dynamic takes over and it's to the detriment of the dog. I raise border collies myself, and I've really appreciated hearing Mr. Johnson's comments on that.
And I echo your comments. In all my years on telephone, on radio, and television, you're the first person who's ever used such deliciously delicate phrases as
Thank
to
you very
echoing
much.
the comments.
Bye now.
You obviously have a degree in psychology or social work or something. Take a break. Go ahead to Webster.
Hello, Jack.
Yes, yes.
On your remark with regard to Kent Prison,
Yes, yes.
your blanket statement about incarcerating the dangerous ones and releasing all the non-violent ones, that is taking it rather to an extreme, is it not?
Oversimplification, but you know the point I make perfectly well, that once a man's got a prison record for a non-violent crime and has served some time, which he should do, there's no point to keep them in forever. I'm against much of the rehabilitation so-called, and I believe short, sharp sentences for punishable offences would be much more successful than our present melange and mishmash.
Oh, I agree, up to a point, certainly. I mean, I work in the...
Oh, don't misunderstand me. I have every sympathy with you, and you can't blame it on one section of the system. It's just become a dog's breakfast over the years.
Yes, well, I'm afraid there's too much political input on that.
Far too much. As a matter of fact, you know, it's a depressing subject. I have no objection to the good food out at Kent Prison. Men must have decent food if they're in jail. The ratio of guards to, or staff to prisoners, of course, is quite ludicrous in Canada, and that grew up because of the policies of the Liberal government over many years.
Yes, well, I actually work in the provincial service, and the food there is also far superior to what you'd normally get in your own house.
Oh, agreed. I don't complain about that. I merely complain about the fact that we seem to be overweighted in staff, which doesn't always do the job it's supposed to do in terms of rehabilitation.
Yes.
And anyway, Kent State is still a tough-looking place with these bars.
It is. I agree.
But they're going to try and let them live in kind of communal-type arrangements, which, if it works, be a step in the right direction from the BC Pen anyhow.
Yes, I agree. The provincial could certainly do with a bit of updating as well.
Well, who can you talk to about that? You see, there's nobody you can speak to in the provincial government who makes any sense on anything at all, as far as the Attorney General's department is concerned.
You can say that again.
In spades. Well, my best wishes to Gardy, wherever you are. Dear old Gardy. God bless him. Go ahead, please.
Hello, Mr. Webster. I'd like to say to Mr. Johnson that I was up for the White Pass in Yukon railway company. I worked on the riverboat going from Carcross to Atlin. And I want to say with him that it's a fascinating country, wonderful scenery, fishing. We used to play baseball at 2 o'clock in the morning, and all the dogs and everything. I just hope that he has good success in his venture.
He thanked you and I thank you. Go ahead, please.
Hello, Mr. Webster.
Yes, sir.
You were just talking to a fellow there about the new Kent maximum security prison.
Yeah, Brian did a report on it this morning.
Right, very good report, too.
Excellent.
Did you ever see the BC Pen at all?
Did I ever see it?
Pardon?
Yes.
Well, you must admit now that with their new facility as far as their food is concerned, did you know at the one time the BC Penitentiary that when they got their meals, they were not allowed to have a cafeteria to eat in. They took their meals to the cells and were locked up to eat.
That's right. I remember that well.
Right. Now they got the new system where they have a wonderful cafeteria to eat in. That must be one great step to a better rehabilitation program.
The fact is, though, that BC Pen was too big and too overcrowded and had too many bad associations for too many years, and it's been patchworked and done this and that and the next thing, and I think the long-range objective to get rid of it is a good thing.
Sure, it's a good thing, but now we look at how you had some interviews with some of the inmates there. We're wanting more freedom. Now, they're running into a smaller institution where they're keeping a tight security control over all inmates. And I think that's the key of starting any other interruptions in the prison, such as a riot.
Well, I don't know. They've got a communal plan for living there whereby they're going to be living in sectional units and will have some fair amount of freedom, and they've certainly got more decent surroundings.
Sure, they got a lot more surroundings, but they're also already objecting to the fact that they're having such frisks, as they call it, being skinned down, searched at all times.
No reasonable prisoner objects to that kind of thing when you...
None whatsoever. They shouldn't have any excuse for that at all.
When you think of how easy it has been in the past to get drugs, knives, and on the odd occasion guns into jail.
I had to laugh, though, at the director, saying that he didn't think there was any drugs at this time at his institution. It's there. It always will be an institution.
It's very difficult, but I should imagine Kent's pretty clean at this moment.
Right at this moment, we give it, as I say, what receiving.
I wish the new director the very best of British luck, I'll tell you. He'll need it.
I used to work in the penitentiary service, Jack.
I was involved in the '63 riot, which is why I raised my eyebrows.
I was involved from '73, and then the last one is '75.
Let's go after this break. Good morning.
Morning, Mr. Webster.
Yes, sir.
I was just watching your show about Kent Institution there.
Yeah.
And do you really feel that these living units are going to quieten these inmates down?
I hope so.
I work in the corrections branch, and I seem to know quite a bit of what's going on at Kent. And there's been more assaults on staff since Kent has opened in the last couple of years there has been at the penitentiary.
There's only 49 inmates in Kent at the moment.
I know that. Kent is closed down right at the moment. They're not accepting inmates due to the fact they've had so much trouble there altogether so far. And I really don't feel that these living units are going to help too much.
Well, it's an experiment, I suppose, an expensive one, and they deserve a little bit of... surely the prisoners are being selected quite carefully for Kent. They're not those in protective custody. They're not those in Supermax.
No, but what I'm getting at, Mr. Webster, is that eventually they're going to have the full population from the BC Penitentiary, and they're not all good guys.
Well, we know that, but similarly, the administration might be excellent out at Kent, and the majority of the prisoners might be all right. It's built, it's got to be tried, and I think the communal living is better than cell living.
Possibly so, but why in the States did most institutions get rid of the living unit concept, finding out that it didn't work?
They're going back to incarceration, though.
That's right, yeah.
Don't want to turn back the clock all the way.
No,
Anyway,
I would just like to find out your views
well,
on
I
living
don't
unit
really, I
concept,
don't know
you
enough about it, but I wish you well anyway, whatever you're doing in the penitentiary system. And everybody in it. Go ahead, please.
Yes, my name is Kathy Toland. I'm the president of the Siberian Husky Club in this area. I'd like to say hello to Mr. Bruce Johnson.
Are you in Vancouver?
North Vancouver.
Siberian Husky Club. Did you know there was one here?
No, I didn't.
Well, we're quite an active club. We're a division of the Canadian Siberian Husky Club. And also I spent the summer, or part of the summer in Atlin, and fell in love with the area. One of my neighbors came rushing over to tell me that you were on TV, so I didn't catch all of the show.
Oh, he just done giving himself a plug for his tourist business this summer, for his dogs, which are a cross between labs and huskies. And he's a very nice fellow, and his pretty young wife, Janelle, is publishing the Atlin Rag Times as of today.
Oh, yes. I was wondering how long Mr. Johnson was going to be...
Just give your number to Linda, and he'll give you a call later on.
Okay, that would be great.
You do that, Linda, please? Thank you. Go ahead, please.
Hello, Jack. Welcome back. I'm glad your voice is cleared up.
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to know how I can subscribe to the Atlin Rag Time News and how much it is per month, etc.
This is carrying the publicity to an extreme right to... What's your name again? Johnson. Bruce Johnson. Atlin.
Atlin.
And they'll send you a subscription, and just you send them $50 and they'll send it for lifetime.
Also, some of the items I'd love to see in there is a recipe for sourdough bread starter. Maybe how to make a root cellar. And what time does your day start up there?
What time does your day start?
6 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, yeah, you probably don't
How do I know you're telling the truth?
You have to come and see.
You probably don't get up till noon.
Come on up and see.
Have you got a brochure? I love the outdoors, and Jack, I wish you'd have more people like this. You know, the salt of the earth, as they say. And you could go to all corners of BC. And also, here's a little one-liner for you. The pioneers who blazed the trails now have descendants who burn up the roads.
That is so cute as to make me vomit. Well, just a minute. How much time have I got left in this segment? Got 3 minutes. Take another phone call. Just calm down, Freddie. That's Freddie. What a fussy mix. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, Jack. I had a medium-sized black labby.
You had?
Very powerful in the neck and shoulders. I was wondering if your guest might have decided to breed the husky with the black lab because of that reason, or why? What was his reason?
Oh, to put some brains and heart into the husky. And lab has a lot of power, too.
Yeah.
And I've had real good success training leaders out of lab husky dogs. A husky has a lot of heart also, but I just combined the best with the two, I thought.
Black labs, not golden labs.
Well, they're black and golden.
Black
I don't
and
care.
golden.
I'm not color conscious.
Not color conscious.
No.
Oh.
What do you call your breed?
Thank you very much.
Johnson line of huskies.
Aye.
It's called the Johnson line of huskies. And if I can make a cute little comment.
Oh, that's what you're calling it. Okay.
Half a loaf is better than no breed at all.
Right on.
Isn't that good? I've been trying to get a chance to say something. I meant to do this the other day. But we in the media are rather an incestuous little group. And the passing of Fotheringham from the Vancouver Sun, although he may appear as a columnist from the far waypoints of FP publications, went unnoticed in this program. And so for a little maudlin touch, I want you to see the masthead of the Vancouver Sun the other day when it said, Clark W. Davies, publisher, Rutter, Hutchison, Larson, and Fotheringham, contributing editor. Allan wrote his last column a week ago Saturday, and now we have a new masthead in the Vancouver Sun. Davy, Rutter, Bruce Larson, Hutchison, and no Fotheringham. It's a pity. Allan is spending half his time in the east, half his time in the west, and is going to be writing columns for the FP chain for a fellow called Ted Bolwell. And hopefully the Sun will be smart enough to publish all the columns that Fotheringham writes. He's no longer on the Sun, he's FP. Mind you, the whole Sun is FP, but this is the local branch.